What was that like for you, to sometimes be the only minority sitting there at a table?
At times it was very difficult. I worked with 30 assistants to the president, and I would look to my left and look to my right, and the only people who were there were folks that didn't look like you and I. There was a lack of diversity that I will acknowledge, and at times it was very lonely.
Omarosa Manigault-Newman is out of her job as Donald Trump's senior advisor, and with her goes the last vestige of racial diversity among Trump's senior staff. The White House is now short one director of communications at its Office of Public Liaison following Manigault-Newman's reportedly dramatic departure, which, according to a source close to the White House, involved Chief of Staff John Kelly giving her the axe, followed by her trying to reach Trump in the White House residence before being escorted out by security. According to Manigault-Newman, it was a long-planned voluntary resignation on her own terms, which leaves a nation in search of powerful African Americans in the Trump administration, turning its lonely eyes to Ben Carson. Tara Dowdell is back with me, and also joining me, Daily Beast political reporter Asawin Suebsaeng and MSNBC political contributor Jason Johnson. Asawin, I want to let you hear Omarosa on Good Morning America telling her story. This is Omarosa this week.
There were a lot of things that I observed during the last year that I was very unhappy with, that I was very uncomfortable with, things that I observed, that I heard, that I listened to. I can expand upon it because I have to still go back and work with these individuals. But when I have a chance to tell my story, Michael, quite a story to tell. As the only African-American woman in this White House, as a senior staff and assistant to the president, I have seen things that have made me uncomfortable, that have upset me, that have affected me deeply and emotionally, that has affected my community and my people. And when I can tell my story, it is a profound story that I know the world will want to hear.
To which Robin Roberts said...
So she said she has a story to tell, and I'm sure she'll be selling that story.
We'll see.
Well, yeah, she will. Bye, Felicia.
She got Bye Felicia by Robin Roberts. You really have to do a lot to get Bye Felicia by Robin Roberts. Asawin Suebsaeng, let me come to you first, because the difference in the stories is that Omarosa says she quit voluntarily and that she actually isn't even out until January. The story that I and many other journalists heard was that at the White House Christmas party, the deed went down. Kelly told her, "You're done." She tried to go to the White House residence, say Donald Trump is the only one who can tell me what to do, and that didn't work out. What do you know about what happened, how she was ousted?
Well, according to the sources in the White House that I and my White House reporting colleague Lachlan Marquet reported at the Daily Beast, she caused what several officials called a ruckus shortly after she was told that she would be let go from the Trump administration. And she tried to, according to one official, quote, storm the residence to try to speak to President Donald Trump about this directly, and ultimately failed to do so and was thwarted. One official told us that this was the closest thing to reality TV they had seen in the Trump White House since they got there and started working there, which is, a tall bar to clear. And I just want to go back to something she said earlier about being upset regarding racial issues and divisiveness in her time in the Trump White House. Not too long after Trump mishandled the Charlottesville atrocity and had a really hard time saying that white supremacists and Nazis are bad unequivocally, according to our sources in the White House, Omarosa Manigault-Newman was still bragging to people privately about her access to the president and how he would call her sometimes as late as or early as 3 or 4 a.m. To talk to her and solicit her advice. And so if she was completely freaked out by his handling of race issues in this country, particularly after Charlottesville, it did not really come through in private. But if she's saying that now, I mean, your viewers can decide if they want to take that at face value.
Yeah, and Jason, you had a very famous confrontation with Omarosa at NABJ, which was interesting. But she says in her interview, in the interviews that she's been doing since then, she was on Good Morning America and also Nightline, that one of her concerns was that she saw things that she found disturbing for, as she said, my community and my people. She was in charge of the HBCU initiative, in which they rewrote the Obama administration's annual proclamation with like a couple line changes. She had the Black History Month sort of confab where Donald Trump said that Frederick Douglass is being recognized more and more and is doing an excellent job. But can you explain what it was that Omarosa was doing that made her sort of the go-between between Trump world and the African-American community?
Well, Joy, what she did was just stick with Trump for 14 years because, look, when I was on that panel at NABJ, which lots of people have seen, and it went viral, and TMZ covered it, I asked her, and I was not trying to be funny. I said, what do you do? Like, if you could actually tell us what you do, it might have a lot to do with why and how people are criticizing you. And between that question and what happened with the Daily Beast, you know, Omarosa has never done a good job of actually explaining what she did. She was a public liaison for communications, but no one actually knew what that was accomplishing. She was making just as much money as Sean Spicer. At least we know what Sean Spicer was doing. He was lying for the president. So we don't know what Omarosa did. And if her claim to fame in the White House was the HBCU event, that was a ridiculous mess because 15 minutes after you bring in all the HBCU presidents, the Republicans came out with a budget which slashed the very funding that they were supposedly presenting. So she never made her job clear, and the moment that General Kelly was in that place, there was a bullseye on her, and she was never going to be effective, and certainly not under someone like him who seems to have hostility towards black women anyway.
And so what is she going to do now? I mean, just as a marketing matter, Tara, she's going out. Obviously, I think she's teeing up a book that she'd like to write, that she wants to tell her story, or as Robert said, sell her story, right? But that's legitimate. Anyone who comes out of the administration can do that. But who is her audience? Because she's now really talking about the black community in a very forthright way. But is that the audience that is going to buy this book? I mean, what does she do about Donald Trump and things like Charlottesville, where he's made some pronouncement that people have seen as, let's say, racially insensitive?
Well, she's going to have a very tough time because now she's on the outs with the administration. And so all the people who were sort of following her because they were Trump supporters and she was a black woman who was supporting Trump so they can say, look, we're not racist, that crowd is going to be less likely to follow her. But I think what you will see Omarosa do, though, is I think you'll see her take the Steve Bannon route, where basically she will attack all of the people around Trump, but she's not going to attack Trump. And so I think she's thinking that she can still kind of carve something out by kind of going that route where she maintains that relationship with Donald Trump.
Can she make it without him?
I think she's going to have a tough time making it without Donald Trump because her entire career has been tied, you know, everything she's done has been tied to Donald Trump. Like all of her revenue sources have primarily been tied to Donald Trump, which is, again, why I think you won't see her attack Donald Trump no matter what. She's going to, hell hath no fury like Omarosa scorned. So she will definitely aim and target her fire at those people around Trump, particularly General Kelly and people who were responsible for her ouster, the people who she was sparring with this whole time. They're going to come under fire, but she's going to be very careful not to attack him.
She's also been spending a lot of time attacking April Ryan, which is very interesting. A journalist, April Ryan. Let's listen to Donald Trump to that very point, being asked whether Donald Trump is a racist. This was on Nightline this week.
Many people feel that the president at worst is a racist and at best is a sympathizer for white supremacists. Is he?
Donald Trump is racial, but he is not a racist. Yes, I will acknowledge many of the exchanges, particularly in the last 6 months, have been racially charged. Do we then just stop and label him as a racist? No.
Your thoughts, Jason Johnson. Of course, that's a great Deborah Roberts at the interview her on Nightline. She's been very strategic about going to black reporters, both at ABC. We actually asked for her on this show as well. We haven't been able to get her to come on yet, but she's been very strategic. What do you think of what she said?
You know, that's kind of like saying, you know, Harvey Weinstein is very sexual, but he's not a sexist, right? He's kind of rapey, but he's not a Look, does it really matter? Does it really matter if Donald Trump is actually a racist when he provides aid and comfort to racist organizations? Does it really matter if Donald Trump uses the N-word, if he empowers Jeff Sessions, who says that Black Lives Matter is more of a terrorist threat than ISIS? I mean, you know, I always think this sort of question of whether or not somebody is actually racist means less than looking at the policies that they have. And the problem with Omarosa has always been that she always wants to play this line and dance around in the middle and say, well, he's not racial, he's racist, whatever. It doesn't really matter. You have no integrity, certainly with the African-American community or anybody who believes about justice, if you're always trying to justify behavior that from a pure policy standpoint is openly hostile to people of color. That just doesn't make any sense.
And Asawin, really quickly, last word to you. Do you detected any of the reporting that I've heard a little bit of this, that essentially the administration is empowering, particularly black Republicans who have been deeply at odds with Omarosa, to go ahead and attack her now?
Well, I've yet to confirm that myself. So I can't quite comment on that. But back to what we were discussing earlier for a moment, Omarosa's concerns in the White House, from everybody I've spoken to who interacted with her, people who were friendly with her, people who were disgusted by her, her priority was not minority outreach or black outreach. It was looking out for Omarosa.
Wow. And with that,
that's the bottom line.
And with that, we will call timeout on this segment. Tara Dowdell, Asawin Suebsaeng, Jason Johnson, thank you guys very much.